Hi there. I don't know if you're one of these people who has been on any kind of training over the last couple of months. If you have, I'd probably put money on the fact that part of that training involved handling change and dealing with crisis. Am I right? And one of the great tools that you're perhaps familiar with that often comes into play when we talk about change and crisis is the change curve. Now, if you've not heard of the change curve, then it basically represents a curve that we all go through. It's like an emotional curve, an emotional journey that we all go through when we experience any kind of change. And essentially how it works is we begin in a phase of what's known as unconscious incompetence, which is basically, I don't know what I don't know. And that phase, which is probably the phase we were at when COVID-19 first started infiltrating our land, we have fear, we have emotions like denial, we have frustration, we have anger, all those kind of pushback, resistance, all those kind of emotions that often hinder our progress. And then eventually what happens is this takes us down in terms of our motivation and perhaps our performance levels. So it would be perhaps quite natural to think that your own emotional state was wobbly at that point until you got to a point which is actually the lowest point on the curve, and that's a point of acceptance. And that second phase is called unconscious competence. No, it isn't. It's called conscious incompetence. There we go. I haven't got it in front of me. So conscious incompetence stage 2 is basically now I know what I didn't know. So I understand more about what's going on and I reach this point of acceptance. And it's this point on the curve from our lowest point that we then start that upward trajectory. And that leads to stage 3, which is known as, well, here we go, conscious competence. So now I know what I know. And so if you've gone through a change, maybe you know, when you left your working office and you perhaps had to work from home, or you realized that you were on furlough, or you perhaps realized that your business was failing, or whatever your circumstances. But we start to get round to this point of conscious competence, which is, okay, so now I understand what I understand. And I reach this point of openness. I'm open to doing something different. I'm open to working in a different way. I'm open to actually working somewhere different. And you know, those thousands and thousands of people that went and supported our great workers in retail, those great workers that helped first responders, and so on and so forth. So, you know, this was all part of openness and really testing something new. Or for many of us, it was open to working differently and having all my meetings on Zoom, even though I've got a lot of Zoom fatigue because of it. And then finally, we move round. And by the way, you're going up here, so your motivation is gradually improving and your performance levels will improve alongside that. And then you hit that final pinnacle, which is unconscious competence. And that really is unconscious competence. So that's the bit where you've really integrated the change, and now you're relearning, you're improving and making small incremental changes to help you develop and refine the way in which you're embracing the change. And that might have been just where you were at the point that the lockdown ended, or started to end at least. And we were then hit with, now you might be going back to work. Oh, schools may be reopening, some retailers may be opening, etc. And what happens is that creates a shift again, and we go all the way back round that change curve. We don't always go all the way back to the start, but we may have. And so this video is to ask you, really, how have you experienced the change curve over the last few months? Does this all resonate with you? And if so, how have you helped others embrace and move around the change curve? Because absolutely, by getting from that first stage of unconscious incompetence, I don't know what I don't know, round to acceptance, which is that point, that conscious incompetence, that you can then start to move forward again. That is a really good place to be. And it can take time or it can happen very quickly, depends what you put in place. So I'm really curious as to how you've experienced the change curve over these last few months and how it's influenced how you've worked. So let me know. I'd love to hear from you as always, and I'll see you again soon.